On behalf of Namita Gokhale, William Dalrymple, and all my colleagues at Teamwork Arts, welcome back to JLF's Brave New World Season 3. Our magazine partner for this series is The Week, Journalism with a Human Touch. In case any of you missed our earlier session today, contest for the Indo-Pacific, Why China Won't Map the Future, Rory Metcalf in conversation with Tanvi Madan, you can catch it on our YouTube and Facebook platforms. Our second session today is Dharma, Decoding the Epics for a Meaningful Life. Amish and Bhavna Roy in conversation with Vayu Naidu. Celebrated writer Amish's latest book, Dharma, Decoding the Epics for a Meaningful Life, co-authored with Bhavna Roy, is an illuminating narrative on the essential concepts of Indian philosophy and its relevance in the modern era. Searching the intergenerational wisdom of timeless Indian epics, they throw light on our contemporary confusions. Amish is currently director of the Nehru Centre in London and is the best-selling author of the Shiva trilogy, the Rama trilogy, and Legend of Suhail Dev. Author and performance storyteller Vayu Naidu, the two co-authors discuss the book and their attempts to address the timeless question of dharma, righteousness, and a meaningful life. Amish is a diplomat, author, and columnist. He took over as the director of the Nehru Centre in London in October 2019. Amish published his first book in 2010 and has written 9 books till date. His books have sold 5.5 million copies and have been translated into 10 Indian and 9 international languages. Bhavna Roy was educated in Mussoorie, Pune, and Mumbai. After graduating in psychology from Mumbai University, she worked as a volunteer in a school for special children in Malegaon and later in an NGO in Nasik called SOS. Vayu Naidu is a Royal Literary Fund Fellow at Royal Holloway University of London, History Humanities 2019 to 2021. She is also the Research Associate at the Center for the Circulation of Literatures and Post-Colonial Studies at the South Asian Studies Institute at SOAS, and is continuing her work with Malsogi and the Being Human Project. She was the first storyteller transposing the Ramayana and the Mahabharata in English with Western orchestras in museums and arts education for a multicultural society commissioned by the Arts Council of England. Please do remember to ask questions and comment by typing it into the comment section below. I've, of course, just been told by Amish that I'm extremely intimidating in the first time anybody meets me, so I hope that's not true for all our viewers out there. Ladies and gentlemen, Dharma, Decoding the Epics for a meaningful life, Amish and Bhavna Roy in conversation with Vayu Naidu. Vayu, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjoy. And I must say, you're one of the most charismatic introducers to writers, thinkers, and creating this platform. So thank you to Jaipur Literature Festival, to William Dalrymple, and Namita Gokhale. I say that with pause and with reverence and affection. So welcome, Amish. Welcome, Bhavna. What a wonderful work you have put out into the world, not just in terms of letters, but as an inspiration. Dharma, decoding the epics, and somehow my tongue always slips and twists in the rightful direction of saying decoding ethics as well for a meaningful life. So welcome, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And this is the first time I'm meeting you, Bhavna, and Amish, you and I have had an alliance, thanks to Sanjoy introducing us. That's one of his other talents. And I just firstly wanted to welcome everybody at whatever time zone they are. And I don't know what time of year this is because we've all gone through a planetary crisis. Yes, it is the virus, but it's also about climate change. And I hope this comes up in our discussion about Dharma. And I think it does feature in the epics. But before I invite our speakers, I think one of the things that came out of a conversation in our last session, Amish, was how are we using these terms? We are always having to find out an English word. And one of the definitions that we kind of pull from is morality and ethics, or morality versus ethics, or morality above ethics, in trying to define what is dharma. And, a very simple kind of definition that comes over is that ethics is an abstract principle or order that we refer to, whereas morality is the individual's practice within that code. But these all seem to be hair splitting. And I think dharma is actually telling us something that integrates everything. And this is the genius of its thinking about the individual and the community and the family and the construct of the fabric of society. So I'm going to first invite actually Bhavna to speak to us, because in this wonderful book that you'll have come out with, I was so attracted to the idea that you put forward about karma. And I feel no definition of dharma can really be fulfilled without first a little introduction to karma. And if I could invite you, Bhavna, to speak about what you're trying to propose in the book, and then maybe over to Amish, and then we can start a conversation. So may I invite you, Bhavna, to just say, what were you putting forward in the book about karma?
Thank you, Vayu. To begin with, let me say to you that I adore your name. It is so resonant with a very central aspect of Dharma, which is Vayu. You know, air, one of the five elements that make up creation itself. I began with your name because Dharma really is quite different from concepts of morality and ethics, which are human-centric words. In the expanse of Dharma, humans are really one of so many elements that come together in a sort of an Indrajal, where nodes of life are connected through bands of energy, and everything is reflected in everything else. Dharma is the way any piece of life is meant to be. It could be a piece of carbon, diamond. It could be the sun, the moon, the stars, the air, Vayu, Prithvi, the ants, the tigers, the lions, the plants, the banyan tree, and yes, also Vayu, Amish, and I, and all other human elements of life. Dharma is the way things are meant to be. Karma is activity. Now, what is activity? Is activity mere action? Is this activity? Or are our thoughts also activity? Or are our emotions activity? Are we active when we are sleeping? Is breathing an activity? Any kind of movement is activity. And any movement or activity or karma that takes you away from the central spinal cord of dharma is karma that is moving towards disharmony. And any kind of movement that is moving towards the spinal cord of dharma is moving towards harmony.
Thank you for that. And you expressed it beautifully with your hands as well. So really it's about karma being any form of activity, subtle or gross, as the scriptures often use those terms. And yet there is this definition of a negative and a positive side to the activity. And dharma is these individual turning multiple universes from which we find the strands of which direction we go, if I've understood you correctly. Amish, would you like to tell us what you were you and Bhavna together in a way. It's a commendable thing to do it as a co-authorship. It's a terrifying task and a brilliant one, and many people fall out. But I think you have that wow, diplomatic bridge professionally and personally. So how did you come to it, and how did you put that together? So what was your universe of Dharma in this?
Well, I think between Bhavna Di and me, uh, more than the diplomatic bridge, it's the personal bridge. She's my elder sister, so we've grown up together.
So was
You
it your
know,
dharma to be obedient and subordinate?
Didi was always the bully when she was young, but she has grown up a great deal. And I am not as scared as I used to be when I was young. But the thing was, she was my, even when I write my fiction books, because in our family everyone reads a lot. It's a habit in our family. But Didi reads the most. I read maybe 5-6 books a month. I know that sounds like a lot. Didi reads a lot more. She may read 8-9 in a month very peacefully. So she usually, for all my, much of my books, the discussions actually happen within my family. So I would discuss, say, story ideas with my elder brother Anishta. I would discuss many business ideas with my twin brother Ashish. I would discuss many thoughts with my bhabhi, with my ex-wife. Philosophical discussions were usually with Bhavna Di. And because both of us have been deeply, into this, and building a bit on what Didi said, a few things that emerged clearly in that. First, we have to define what dharma is, which is one of the most difficult things to do, because our ancestors have spent not just a lifetime, many lifetimes answering the question for the ages: what is dharma? One can be clear what it is not. It is not religion, right? Often in the modern day, it is translated as religion. Dharma is beyond religion. Religion is just panth, a list of do's and don'ts, right? Um Dharma, in a way, treats you like an adult. A panth will tell you, do this. Don't question. It treats you like a child. Dharma, in a way, treats you like an adult, right? And you have to make your own decisions, your own karma, and then live with the consequences. What Didi was saying, which she expressed so beautifully with her hands. She's a trained dancer, so of course there's a lot of natural, and a good dance is also dharma. Okay, in the Indian way, anything that you're doing which is in tune with the way the universe should be is dharma. Now, you can make a choice. It's your choice. You can make a choice to move away from dharma. You can move towards adharma, as Ravan did, and then you live with the consequences of that. So the entire thing is that in the Indian way, you're treated like an adult. That that this is what dharma is. There's an exploration of it, and then you make your own choices and live with the consequences, positive or negative, and no one will judge you, right? There is no judgmental God. There is no permanent heaven, hell. There is only this earth, this Mayavi world, which we will go through in cycles of birth. And the aim is not to find a permanent heaven or get stuck in a permanent hell. The aim is a release from this cycle of births, moksha, nirvana, right? Now, if you have to be treated like an adult, then you need to be trained in how to behave like an adult. And one of the things that was there in our ancient gurukuls and pathshalas, and in fact, not just in the ancient schools in India, ancient schools across the world, the schools of mystery, for example, in the Mediterranean world, the last of which was destroyed, I think, some maybe 1400, 1500 years ago. Among the things that were basics that were taught to everyone was mathematics and philosophy, right? And in the Indian way, philosophy would be, what is dharma? Why was philosophy taught to everyone? And why is it not taught today? And you think of the chaos that it causes today when we are not taught philosophy. Excuse me. What is philosophy? Essentially the art of learning how to live. When you understand what are the various aspects of dharma, you learn how to make choices in your life, right? If you haven't learned that and all you've learned is skills at a job, It's a bit like giving a knife to an infant. The end result will not be good. You see humanity in the last, I'm not just talking about this year, I'm talking about the last 60, 70 years. In many ways, in material terms, humanity has never had it better. Per capita violence is the lowest it's ever been. Per capita prosperity is the highest it's ever been. Middle classes today lead lifestyles that royalty couldn't have lived, 100, 150 years ago. And yet people are unhappy, which doesn't make sense. So is the problem internal rather than external? And that's where the thought was in putting this book together, that things that you would learn as a part of standard education, which we are sadly not exposed to today, we are trying to present it through this book in a conversation, an answer to the question, what is dharma? And therefore learning philosophies which you can apply in your life.
I think it's a fantastic paradigm that also is being put forward by looking at both an old form of thinking which got abused, where there is a whole scientific cycle of this thing, which is why when I wanted to open our conversation, and as you both have brought in your interpretations of karma is what action takes place, and dharma is the choices of those actions. And I think what you've also delivered in this book is by looking at epics. And I'm very heartened to hear from you, Amish, towards the last bit of the conversation, is that it's not only about India. And why don't we learn philosophy? And actually, there's the paradigm of the Indian systems of thinking, which involved practice. Philosophy was not, yes, there were systems of thinking, but it wasn't just a cold, hard, dry, whole abstract way of thinking. It was about practice. And this is where I'm going to come to both your efforts in actually putting it across through those marvelous epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So now comes the game time, and I'm going to request each one of you siblings to choose a particular epic. And I'm going to start with you again, Bhavna, as to what, I mean, there are lots of karmic and dharmic resolutions that take place in each of the epics. But what for you was the most striking, which you felt you wanted to put in this book? And which epic would you choose?
What we have chosen is actually the Mahabharata and Amish's universe of the Meluha series and his Ramayana. And really what we have done is taken these stories and in the epic as the bedrock from which we have studied human compulsions and human inner life. We've studied concepts like envy, like arrogance, humility, loyalty. I found, our examination of loyalty extremely interesting because we studied loyalty from the point of view of Karn, his loyalty to Duryodhan. Also, Anandmai's loyalty to her husband Parvateshwar from, Amish's universe, Kumbhakaran's loyalty to Ravan. Very, very, compelling narratives. Parvateshwar's loyalty to Meluha, for the sake of, his beloved Meluha, he parts company from his living god, Lord Shiva. A fearful loyalty, like, Manthara's, assistant Dhruvu. The ugliness of fearful loyalty and the beauty of loving loyalty, the pitfalls of unquestioning loyalty, of Karn vis-a-vis Duryodhan. Very subtle concepts. Yes, so if you were to ask me to focus on one aspect of what of several that we have studied in this book, I would say loyalty.
I think it's a terrific one you've chosen and enumerated here, because loyalty is the most confounding of choices, because it could be the dharma to follow it through, to be loyal. And where is it that you actually start using that buddhi, which is not just intellect, it's an intuitive, emotive intelligence as well, to say, yes, I'm loyal. Yes, this is my dharma. But how brilliantly it comes out in the epics that that choice you make, it has a scientific consequence, but what do you choose in your loyalty? So I'm delighted, Bhavna, you put it so beautifully in that thing about the pitfalls of loyalty as well. So over to Brother Amish, and your it's just lovely when you enumerate these strands, so it makes it exciting for readers as well to plunge into that in your new work.
Yeah, so essentially, building a bit on what Didi said, and then I'll go to another aspect that we covered in the book. That even on loyalty, for example, Karna is among the most popular characters of the Mahabharata today, and we explore his loyalty. Did his loyalty help the person he himself was loyal to? Did it help Duryodhana? Right? And therefore, what is the kind of loyalty that you should have? Is there a value to blind loyalty? Right? At times, what happens if you're loyal to someone who you know can be better, but you're not in denial, like Kumbhakarna? He can see what his brother is, but he can't help himself. He's loyal to him, right? And what is the tragedy of such a man? Right? So we explore all this, and therefore, being conscious that if you've made any choice, you will have to live with the consequences of that choice. It's not God punishing you or blessing you. They are the consequences of your choice. You're the one who decides what will happen to you through your choices. That's the Indian way. Another aspect we explore is sacrifice, actually. Because, excuse me, if you ask anyone that is sacrificing for someone else, a good thing, especially in India, you will get an answer that of course it's good. It's a moral thing to do. You're giving up your own selfish interest for someone else. That it shows how selfless you are. It shows how great you are. It shows how, to use that very loaded word, moral you are. Right? And then we explore the choices that some of the characters made, both in my fiction book universe and in Mahabharata. So, for example, the choice that Bhishma Pitama makes when he makes a sacrifice for his father, where he takes he makes that terrible sacrifice, that terrible vow, that he will not have any children, he will remain a brahmacharya, so that his father, who was already married earlier, who had enjoyed life and had fallen in love once again as an old man, can continue to enjoy life. And then we explore what are the consequences of that sacrifice by Bhishma Pitama. And was that a good thing to do? Was it a bad thing to do? And who's to decide what is a good thing or a bad thing to do? What about the consequences, not on him, but the consequences on others, right? On the entire empire, on would the war not have happened if Bhishma Pitama had not taken that vow, right? Gandhari Ma makes a sacrifice, right, for her husband. What is the reason for that sacrifice? What are the effects of that? And Parvateshwar also makes a sacrifice. One of the things to note is both Bhishma Pitama and Parvateshwar take a vow of celibacy, but they both have very different reasons. Bhishma Pitama takes a vow of celibacy because he wants to allow his father, who has fallen in love once again at a very old age, to enjoy his desires once again. Whereas Parvateshwar is following an honorable vow that his grandfather took because something unfair had been done. And this was their rebellion against it. So, though the sacrifice itself is the same, the reasons for it are different. and therefore the consequences are different. And one of the things we explore is that in the field of dharma, what you do is often, as important as why you do it, right?
Why actually comes before the
Yeah.
what.
So that,
Timing
and
of
that
it.
is what conscious living is. That is what conscious choice making is. Then when you're making a sacrifice, you should think through that. What is the reasoning for this choice? What will be the impact of that choice? Or is it just that you want to make a sacrifice and have everyone tell you, look what a great man you are? That's ego, right? That's moral arrogance. And if that has hurt others, is that truly a sacrifice? We explore this.
So fantastic. We've got the pitfalls of loyalty. And I'm putting my bit in as to where, one activates the buddhi, and Amish also comes in with the why we need to think before we make the great sacrifice, and what are we sacrificing for, because the consequences, even as we see in our modern society, are huge. Nothing happens without a consequence. It's and that's the beautiful thing as to why we wish everybody either a namaste or a good morning or a salam. It starts from that, because I think the principle, the foundational principle is about the human heart always seeking, not just the human heart, every sentient thing, even a tree, is seeking its evolution, and we consider as humans that evolution is about happiness. Because it's such a fantastic title, and this is why I'm also adding in the sort of through the epics, and of course the epics are so tightly packed with these codes of dharma, which we unravel, and as the listener, as the stories would have come down to us, I don't believe in linear time anymore. I feel we were always there and they're always here around. So with the listening to the stories, the dharma, the karma, the choices, it's so tightly packed that they're becoming unraveled in the listening as the stories of the karna, the gandhari is all unraveling. And somehow I think with the listening mind and heart of another time, people took value from that and constructed their lives. Construct is a wrong word, but lived their lives. I'm now just wanting to progress into this other page of your wonderful book, which is, it's about making life meaningful. We've listened to the stories, and those of us who are here, we live in those old stories. We've fashioned parts of our lives, even in this modern setting. It's a lovely little, what we call a Vesham or an avatar, but of a wonderful, pulsating, universal theme. So the one big thing that comes out in the epics, and I was wondering if you could share that with us, is this whole thing about climate change. I know climate change is the new coinage of terms, but in the epics, it's actually very alive. And I wondered if you could talk about how the respect to the Mother Earth makes that difference, and how we can bring about a change in our individual lives, in our urban, urbane, rural, whatever circumstances. How could we use this notion of dharma in our relationship to the earth? That was a silence.
Yeah. No, Dee, do you want to go for it, or should
You go for it first.
Okay. Vayu, a few things that are different in the Indian way as compared to the modern Western and Middle Eastern way, but I will clarify, India is not unique in that sense. We're just the only ancient one that survived, but all ancient cultures had this approach. The first thing, man was not the greatest creation of the divine. That was very clear for all ancient cultures, right? Man was just one of the creations, many others, and corollary to that, Earth was not a resource to be exploited. It was a mother to be worshipped. Right? I will say again, this is not only the Indian way. This is the way it was in all parts of the ancient world. It's just that India is the only ancient culture that has survived till now, which still has that whole tradition. Which is why you'll find even in practice, even in a poor country like India, governments across political divides can push an environmental agenda, and if you notice, it does not get that much resistance. And we Indians, we are a very rebellious race. We are very difficult to manage, right? But you'll know, we in effect have the equivalent of a carbon tax on petrol, right? There's national level tax, there's state level tax. Indians accept it, right? So many moves have been made towards solar power, to so many other things. It's not a difficult agenda to sell in India because the philosophical framework for it already exists. All you have to say, भाई ये तो माँ प्रकृति है, हमें इनकी पूजा करनी है, इज्जत करनी है. It just automatically enters the Indian mind across all religions. It's not just a Hindu thing. Across all religions, the way they are practiced in India. And this attitude is there in our ancient stories as well. So, for example, the Varaha avatar, it was very popular in ancient times. Of course, today so many of us have forgotten our ancient stories, so we don't know. But we know the battle that Lord Vishnu in his Varaha avatar took to protect, Mother Earth, to protect Ma Prakriti, and that was in a sense an environmental battle, right? And how he rescues Mother Earth and insists that everyone has to respect her and worship her, so these stories are, as you were saying so rightly, and we try and get across in our book. Sorry to be promoting it again and again. Dharma, shamelessly promoting it, but what we try and get across is those stories were essentially codes. We draw lessons from those stories. They're not just stories, they're philosophical lessons. And the Varaha Avatar story just puts in your mind, Lord Vishnu has said, Goddess, Mother Earth is a goddess to be worshipped, not a resource to be exploited. It just goes deep inside, and then you react differently, right? And you'll find that in India, the more traditional parts of India, again, regardless of religion, right? The more traditional parts of India are much closer to an environmental agenda, like the Bishnois in Rajasthan, as compared to the more urban, more westernized Indians who have forgotten many of the traditional pieces. I'm not saying everything in the traditions are perfect. Some things should be questioned. But this is one of the good things that we should preserve, the way we look at nature. As I'll repeat again, as a goddess to be worshipped, not as a resource to be exploited.
I'm just going to share, thank you for that, Amish, just a very small little anecdote of actually Peter Brook when he was looking at, different forms of theatre in India for Mahabharata. And there is a beautiful thing that he does mention in his autobiography, which is that he would just let he never called them actors, he would just let the performers walk around through villages, and everybody of the team of 23, the ensemble of 23, came back, and the first thing they said, the one thing we noticed, which was so striking, or I noticed, which was so striking, that every stone, every leaf, every branch of every tree and the earth was either put a flower on it, worshipped in some way, very simply, without any ostentation, even without any ritual, but it was that relationship with the earth, which, as you say, one of the, as ancients, some of us survived. You
Yeah.
know, when I say us, I mean as a civilization or as a way of thinking, really, and being. And I always say that, you see, it's Varaha is the wild boar avatar, and you have these wonderful stone sculptures from rock cut temples where you always see the two tusks on which the anthropomorphized Mother
And on
Earth.
which he carried Mother Earth,
Exactly.
to
Yeah. So this
a
wonderful
very powerful story.
symbolic imagination, which both of you are brought out in the book on Dharma, and I think I can't say enough that everyone needs to go through the stories, and as both you, Bhavna, Amish, and indeed myself feel that it's through the narrative that the decoding of the philosophy comes through. And I'm hoping we return to some way of even worshipping water. And I like the word worship because it's not just about tradition and rituals. It's used in even in our physic garden of 1764, where the worshipful apothecaries, it meant health has a value, and health comes from plants, health comes from the earth, and if we don't worship it, it does not feed us back.
True.
So
It is
maybe
respectful coexistence. If I may add, you shouldn't just worship the Jal, Agni, Akash and Prithvi. Indeed, you should worship Vayu as well.
now my ego has stepped in. Bhavna, you had something to say.
I do, I wholeheartedly endorse what Amish and you said. Just to add a little bit to this topic. In the book, we have also discussed the story of Icarus and Daedalus. Learning to live with nature and plants and animals, and indeed Vayu, is about balance, essentially finding balance. And the story of Icarus brings out balance so beautifully. King Minos made Daedalus construct the labyrinth to trap the Minotaur in the center, and Daedalus created a beautiful labyrinth. But then King Minos had Daedalus and his son Icarus imprisoned in the labyrinth. What do? Daedalus was a beautiful craftsman. He fashions two wings for both himself and his son from feathers and wax. And but Daedalus also understands that the minute they emerge from the labyrinth, King Minos will have them both put to death. So he says to his son that, we have to emerge from the labyrinth, beta, and we've got to fly. But be careful, be mindful, be conscious, because we should not fly too high, because our feathers are made from, our wings are made from feathers and wax. And if we go too close to the sun, the wax will melt. But be careful that we don't fly too low, because the humidity from the seas will weigh our feathers down, and we will not be able to fly either. So please, keep the balance, fly the moderation, follow me. But Icarus, as the story, beautifully goes, was young. He was victim to hubris, and he flew too close to the sun. The wax melted, and Icarus fell into the sea. It's all about balance.
Yeah, and it's so beautifully captured, the fall, in W.H. Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts, isn't it? How what's below, but it's like you say, it's the balance.
And what we try and do in the book is bring in examples from other ancient cultures as well. Because I think it deepens our understanding. Both of us believe that. And of course, we are very proud Hindus, very proud Indians, and there's a lot we can learn from our traditions. But there's a lot we can learn from the traditions of others as well. And if we try to bring them in, we see the wisdom.
Yeah,
And that's what we try and bring across, similar ancient stories from other cultures as well, through which we can learn these concepts.
I quite enjoyed observing that lovely interweaving layout in the book, which is this thing of looking at a Greek myth with a philosophical tradition. And it was ever thus with the land of the Indus, that it always opened its winds to other cultures. It was ever thus, and may it ever, ever be so. On that happy note, I believe our time for questions has come. And so I'm wondering, should we take the first questions? There is someone called Arunji, but before I go to Arunji asking, if I don't get this formal opportunity, I just want to say, Bhavna and Amish, what an absolute treat, a privilege to share this triangular trikoni of discussion and appreciation of those ideas and thoughts that you have brought about. Please hold your book up again, Amish, because this is my chance to get everybody to engage with narrative and engage, thank you, Bhavna, engage with narrative and principle and philosophy of what is Dharma and how we look at it across cultures from a certain paradigm of thinking. Okay, so Arunji asks, Indian scriptures talk of rebirth and cycle of life. Is Dharma anyway related to this, or is it not related at all? May I ask Bhavna to respond to this? Would you like me to read it out again?
Please.
Yeah. Indian scriptures talk of rebirth and the cycle of life. Is Dharma in any way related to this, or is it not related at all?
Dharma is very central to the concept of reincarnation and vice versa, because Dharma is the way a piece of life is meant to be. One lifetime is not enough for any piece of life to attain that status. It's a recurring effort. Again and again and again, we return from material to immaterial to material to immaterial, to be able to move towards greater and greater harmony and coming in sync with the center of life, which is Dharma. So yes, reincarnation, without the concept of reincarnation, Dharma is incomplete.
It is a process of evolution of our spirit level, which is founded on, like you say, the material and how we evolve. Everyone from the seed of plants, we evolve to humans and other things.
The Jataka tales, for example, explore the past lives of Gautam Buddha, and the various cycles that he went through to become the Buddha, and what he learned in every life. So that is kind of just showing it in a simple story form. But yes, reincarnation is a very, very critical part of understanding the theoretical framework of Dharma.
Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you, Amish. I'm going to go on to Kashmira Patel. Forgive me. Are choices made at a subconscious level, or are they made in a material state of mind? Sort of relates to the previous question. Yeah. May I just get on to another question? A person has to play several roles as a king, person, son, brother, etc. How does one make a choice related to Dharma? Amish?
I think you should answer the conscious and unconscious choice. You want to try it? You want to do that? Sure. The first question really, can you read that question again?
Sure. A person has
hook.
to play. A person has to play several roles as a king, person.
No, not that one. The earlier one, the conscious life.
Are choices made at a subconscious level, or are they made in a material state of mind?
Both.
Hmm.
Choices are made at multiple levels, conscious as well as unconscious. We make conscious choices and we create rationalize, acceptable motives and reasons to explain those choices because we want to feel good about ourselves. Uncovering ourselves like layers and unpeeling of an onion is what spiritualism is really all about. Self-realization is nothing but deepening our consciousness and stripping our unconscious away and getting to know ourselves. It's a very, very brutal, very brave, very courageous exercise. Our unconscious has reasons and to do something and goals to achieve, and our conscious creates cover, rationalize acceptable reasons for us to be able to do so. Often, we find that our unconscious surprises us, even ambushes us. And we say to ourselves, don't know where that came from. What made me behave in that? That's not me at all. Oh, that's very me. That's very, very me. In fact, that me is a much more essential and core me than the me I like to believe is me. And really, there are so many motives that operate simultaneously behind anything that we do in life, not just one, multiple.
You're so right about
And yeah,
making up the narratives, isn't it? About we hypnotize ourselves with little
true, true.
narratives, isn't it?
Yeah. And terms of different roles, look, there is an essential me in I, but which manifests in different roles in different ways, right? So a soldier, the way he will behave with his family will be different as compared to a soldier, the way he'll behave at the battlefront, right? At the battlefront, at least in the traditional ways, the soldier will not cry, but we'll find so many videos of a soldier coming home and say his young child running up to hug him, and the soldier will be crying, right? It's the same person, right? It's the same him, but he behaves differently in different scenarios. So your role manifests a part of you in the way that is relevant for that role, and that is something that actually we should be conscious of, that we obviously cannot behave. We are who we are, but we don't behave exactly the same way in every situation. So like one of the things we say in the book is that people who are comfortable with themselves, who don't have resentment, find it very easy to be respectful to others because they don't feel a need to put down someone else or be disrespectful to someone else to make themselves feel better. They don't feel that. But having said that, even someone who's very comfortable with themselves, there are times when they will be disrespectful if someone else deserves it, right? And at that time, they should fight back. So it's the situation brings out a different aspect of you, and that's the way life is. There's nothing wrong with that. We are who we are. It manifests in different ways in different situations.
Thank you so much, Amish and Bhavna. Time has created a situation for me to very happily thank you, and to all our participants who have been present, even though they've been invisible, and to the participants who have taken the trouble to ask the questions. And so I thank you, and I'm going to dharmically wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, because Christmas is about light and spirit. It's not about the material gift. it is definitely about a gift of life. And my wonderful Christmas treasure is now to hand you over, and all of us, to the lovely Sanjoy Roy.
Thank you very much, Vayu. Pranam. As Bhavna said, we must pranam Vayu as one of the five eternal elements. Vayu Naidu, Amish Tripathi, Bhavna Roy, thank you so much. Amish, your Didi truly, in many ways, sort of tops everything that you and I have ever spoken about. It
Yeah.
is a pleasure to have had her articulation. I've just been listening with great love, and Bhavna, we would love to have many more discussions with you. Maybe hijack you next time Amish is in town, take you to Varanasi, your own city, and have a conversation, be it on Kabir or be it on Dharma or karma that we are suffering, or its consequences that we are suffering.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that as a younger brother. I mean it genuinely. Didi is awesome.
Well, well, Didi is awesome, but you've hidden this Didi for a while. So I'm glad that that Didi is being aired for the rest of us. So
Sanjoy,
thank you, Amish, for
Sanjoy,
introducing Didi.
let me say, let me add to this. Amish dragged me kicking and screaming into the social media world a month back. I was happy to co-author this book with him, but I thought social media will bypass me in this lifetime. And he just pinned me down. He said, "You should not have written a book, or if you want to write the book with me, then you've got to play by the rules of the games, and you've got to be there. You can't drag me down. You've got to add to my energy." And that completely cornered me. I've discovered things like the Instagram and Facebook and things like that in the last 1 month.
I'm not sure whether that's your karma or whether it's the dharma
I was
that's
happy
speaking
living
now.
under a rock.
But there's certainly one thing, it's not just about social media and the social connect of this. It's really about the articulation, more so important in today's day and age, where of course it's a blink, it's not even a blink of the creator's eye. But even within that construct, there is so much, not so much at stake, but there's so much that's going on. There's so much of confusion and conflict, all arising from the conflict in one's mind of dharma and karma. And therefore, your articulation, Bhavna Roy, is absolutely vital at this point of time. So I will put it to both karma and dharma. But thank you very much for being here. Amish Tripathi, as usual, we would have loved for this conversation to carry on forever. Our very favorite Vayu Naidu. Thank you all, and to all of you watching. I'm so sorry that we, as usual, couldn't take all of the questions because there were so many. But we hope you enjoyed this conversation, and you'll log back on Friday, the 25th of December, for our next sessions on JLF's Brave New World, Into the Wild with Matthias A. Klum, in conversation with Jahanaveet Prasad. Matthias A. Klum's prolific career began with being one of the youngest contributors to National Geographic in the 1990s. Celebrated for his aesthetic photographic language, he has since contributed to multiple articles. And this will be at 7 p.m. IST, 1:30 p.m. GMT, and 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, followed by Singing in the Dark, K. Sachidanandan and Nishi Chawla in conversation with Mohini Gupta. Singing in the Dark brings together the finest of poetic responses to the coronavirus pandemic, edited by K. Satyananda and Nishi Chawla. It is more than 100 of the world's most esteemed poets reflect upon a crisis that has dramatically altered our lives and laid bare our vulnerabilities. And that's at 8:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 3 p.m. GMT, and 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Till then, stay safe, stay masked, and I join all our speakers in wishing you all a Merry Christmas. Thank you.